When Hugh Jackman opened a battered guitar case sent by Neil Diamond, he gasped and whispered, "Oh my," before hugging the instrument like it was the most precious thing in the world. What that guitar represented, and why an 84-year-old legend with Parkinson's sent it to Wolverine himself, reveals one of the most touching stories about respect between artists that Hollywood has seen in years. You're going to discover how a movie about a Neil Diamond tribute band moved the real Neil to tears, why Hugh Jackman flew to Colorado for karaoke with a legend, what happened during that incredible night that nobody expected, and what the inscription on that guitar means about legacy, humility, and passing the torch. Stay until the end, because this isn't just about a gift. It's about what happens when art honors art with such love that even the original creator is moved to gratitude, and how two men from completely different worlds found friendship through music. Los Angeles, January 2026. Hugh Jackman posted a video Sunday showing himself opening a guitar case to reveal an acoustic guitar bearing a handwritten inscription from Neil Diamond, CBS Sports. The 57-year-old actor's reaction was pure, unfiltered emotion. "Oh my," Jackman said, as he lifted the instrument out of its case. "That's from Neil Diamond?" He immediately wrapped his arms around the instrument and pulled it close. "CBS Sports. One of the most awesome gifts I've ever received and will cherish forever," Jackman captioned the video. "Thank you, and Neil Diamond. CBS Sports." But this wasn't just a celebrity sending another celebrity a gift. This was the culmination of a journey that began with a movie, deepened through mutual respect, and resulted in a friendship that surprised everyone involved. To understand why this moment mattered so much, we need to go back to the beginning, to a small tribute band in Milwaukee that nobody outside Wisconsin had ever heard of, and to the movie that would change everything. Song Sung Blue tells the true story of Mike and Claire Sardina, a couple whose lives had completely fallen apart. Mike was struggling with addiction. Their marriage was crumbling, they were drowning in debt, and hope seemed like a distant memory. But then they discovered Neil Diamond's music, not just as listeners, but as performers. They started Lightning and Thunder, a Neil Diamond tribute band. And through performing his songs, they found a way back to each other, back to sobriety, back to life. The film, directed by Craig Brewer, who had previously made Hustle and Flow and Footloose, and released on Christmas Day 2024, stars Hugh Jackman as Mike and Kate Hudson as Claire. But it's not a typical musical biopic. It's a story about redemption, about how art can literally save lives, about how Diamond's songs, with their themes of hope, resilience, and human connection, became tools for survival for people who desperately needed them. When the Sardinas perform Sweet Caroline or Cracklin' Rosie or I Am I Said, they're not just entertaining drunk people at county fairs and small-town festivals. They're channeling something deeper, using Diamond's words and melodies to process their own pain, to communicate with each other when their own words fail, to rebuild their shattered lives one performance at a time. Hugh Jackman, known for his roles as Wolverine and his performances in musicals like The Greatest Showman and Les Miserables, approached the role with characteristic intensity. He didn't just want to play someone who sang Neil Diamond songs, he wanted to understand what those songs meant to people like Mike Sardina. He spent months listening to Diamond's catalogue, not as background music, but actively studying the lyrics, the melodies, the emotional architecture of each song. He worked with vocal coaches to get the phrasing right, not to impersonate Neil Diamond, but to capture the spirit of someone who finds salvation in performing those songs. Kate Hudson, playing Claire, brought her own musical background to the role. The chemistry between Jackman and Hudson on screen reflects the real Sardina's journey from broken individuals to a united team finding purpose together. When Neil Diamond, now 84 years old and retired from touring due to Parkinson's disease, first heard about the movie, he was cautious. Tribute bands occupy a complicated space for original artists. Some see them as the sincerest form of flattery, proof that their music has become part of the cultural fabric. Others see them as cheap imitation, people making money off someone else's creativity without adding anything original. Diamond had seen tribute bands before, some good, some terrible, but he'd never really engaged with the phenomenon. A whole movie about people who make their living performing his songs. That was different. That demanded attention. The filmmakers were nervous about Neil's reaction. They'd made the film with love and respect, but they knew that if Neil Diamond publicly criticized it, that could seriously hurt the movie's reception. Craig Brewer arranged for Neil to see an early screening, and Brewer had a few spies in the room when Diamond watched Song Sung Blue, and his response delighted him. I was told from his people that they were surprised to see just how enthusiastic he started to get with it, that he was tapping his foot, that he would applaud after each music number, and that he cried, Brewer said, CBS Sports. Neil Diamond, the man who wrote these songs, who performed them for 50 years in the biggest venues in the world, who heard them sung by millions of people, cried watching Hugh Jackman play a character who performs them in VFW halls and county fairs. That tells you something profound about what the movie captured. It wasn't about the grandeur of stardom. It was about the intimacy of connection, about what happens when music stops being entertainment and becomes essential to survival. After the screening, Neil didn't just send a polite note through his publicist. He came out and grabbed Jackman, saying, "You did good, kid." But he was emotional about it, CBS Sports. For Jackman, who had spent months preparing for this role, who had poured himself into understanding the character and honoring Diamond's music, hearing those words from the legend himself was overwhelming. "You did good, kid." 4 words that meant everything. But that encounter, as meaningful as it was, could have been the end of the story. A screening, a brief meeting, mutual respect exchanged, everyone goes home. Except Neil Diamond couldn't stop thinking about the movie, about Jackman's performance, about what it all meant. A few days later, Jackman's phone rang. It was Neil Diamond. Not his manager, not his publicist, Neil himself. Jackman revealed on the Graham Norton show that Diamond called him after watching the movie. So I took the opportunity. I said, "Guys, I'd love to come around and have a cuppa or something." And Neil's like, "Okay, yeah, all right." And then I didn't hear from Neil anymore, and Diamond's wife Katie obviously takes the phone and goes, "You know we're in Colorado." I went, "Okay, I'd still like to come for a cuppa." And she was like, "So I guess you want to stay the night?" I'm like, "That'd be great." World boxing news. Think about that for a moment. Hugh Jackman, one of the biggest movie stars in the world, star of billion-dollar franchises, internationally recognized icon, was so eager to spend time with Neil Diamond that he was willing to fly to Colorado and stay overnight just for a cuppa. That's not networking, that's not publicity, that's genuine reverence. Jackman could have said, "Yeah, maybe when you're back in LA we can grab lunch." But instead, he jumped at the chance, even though it meant traveling to another state and imposing on Neil's hospitality. Neil Diamond lives in Colorado now, far from the Hollywood spotlight, in a place where he can have privacy and peace as he deals with Parkinson's disease. His wife Katie has been instrumental in helping him navigate this new phase of life, where performing is no longer possible, but music still defines who he is. When Katie realized that Hugh Jackman was serious about flying to Colorado just to visit, she and Neil decided to make it special. So Hugh Jackman, this massively famous actor, flew to Colorado and showed up at Neil Diamond's house like an excited fan, which in many ways he was. What happened that night became one of those magical moments that reminds you why people go into the arts in the first place. They had dinner, and at dinner time, Neil Diamond, who goes, "You want to do some karaoke?" I'm like, "Hell yeah." "We did karaoke," Jackman recalled CBS Sports. Stop and picture that scene. Neil Diamond, 84 years old, dealing with Parkinson's disease, a man who performed for millions of people in sold-out stadiums around the world, is doing karaoke in his living room. And his karaoke partner is Hugh Jackman, who just starred in a movie about people who perform Neil's songs. The beautiful absurdity of it, the circular nature of the whole thing, is almost poetic. What did they sing? Jackman hasn't revealed all the details, but you can imagine. Probably some Neil Diamond songs, with Neil singing his own compositions on a karaoke machine in his own house, probably laughing at the strangeness of it all. Maybe some other classics, Sinatra standards or Beatles songs, just 2 men who love music sharing that love in the most informal, joyful way possible. Katie Diamond was there too, probably taking videos on her phone that the family will treasure forever. This wasn't a photo shoot, wasn't for social media, wasn't for publicity. It was just genuine human connection through music. For Neil, who can no longer perform professionally, who can no longer tour or record the way he once did, that karaoke night was probably a gift. A reminder that music doesn't have to be perfect or professional to be meaningful, that singing with someone who understands and appreciates your work is its own kind of performance. For Jackman, it was a masterclass and a validation. Here was the man whose songs he'd spent months learning, whose artistic legacy he'd tried to honor, welcoming him as a friend and equal. The night apparently went so well, was so full of laughter and music and connection, that Neil started thinking about how to properly thank Jackman for what he'd done, not just for the performance in the movie, but for understanding what the music meant, for treating it with respect and love, for getting it right. That's when Neil decided to send the guitar. The guitar case was slightly tattered, signaling that it's had a busy past life Philippine news agency, meaning this wasn't a new guitar ordered from a store. This was an instrument that Neil himself had played, that had history, that had been part of his own musical journey. Musicians don't casually give away their instruments. Guitars, especially ones you've played extensively, become extensions of yourself. They carry memories of songs written, concerts performed, moments of breakthrough and struggle. When Neil sent that guitar to Jackman, he wasn't sending merchandise. He was sending a piece of his own artistic life. The guitar bore a handwritten inscription. "Hugh, keep rocking, your friend Neil Diamond, World Boxing News." Every word of that inscription matters. Hugh, not Mr. Jackman or to Hugh Jackman, just the first name, intimate and personal. Keep rocking. An encouragement, a blessing, an acknowledgement that Jackman is carrying Diamond's music forward in his own way. Your friend, not admirer or fan or colleague, but friend. Neil Diamond, legendary songwriter and performer, considers Hugh Jackman a friend. And then Neil Diamond, signed in his own hand, personal and real. When that package arrived at Jackman's home and he opened it to reveal the guitar, the emotion we see in the video is completely genuine. Jackman gasped, "Oh my," and immediately hugged the guitar. CBS Sports. He didn't pose with it, didn't immediately think about how it would look on camera. His first instinct was to embrace it, to hold it close, because he understood what it represented. This wasn't just an expensive gift from a wealthy man to a famous actor. This was one artist telling another, "You honored my work, you understood it, you matter to me." In a world where celebrity interactions are often transactional, strategic or performative, this moment of genuine emotion stands out. The video Jackman posted went viral immediately, viewed millions of times within hours. People were moved not just by the gift itself, but by the visible emotion, by seeing someone as famous and successful as Hugh Jackman so clearly touched by recognition from an artist he admires. Comments poured in from people sharing their own stories about what Neil Diamond's music meant to them, about seeing tribute bands, about how certain songs had gotten them through difficult times. The video became a focal point for collective appreciation of Diamond's legacy and the power of music to connect people across generations and circumstances. But the story doesn't end with the gift. The movie Song Sung Blue has been successful both commercially and critically. It grossed $12 million on its opening weekend and has now comfortably turned a profit on its $30 million production costs Philippine news agency. More importantly, it sparked conversations about tribute bands, about what it means to honor an artist's work, about how music functions as therapy and salvation for people going through hard times. Not everyone connected to the real story is entirely happy with the film. The son of the real Mike Sardina has voiced concerns about how his family was portrayed, arguing that some details were changed or dramatized for cinematic effect. This is always the tension with biopics and films based on true stories, whose truth gets told, whose perspective matters most, what gets included and what gets left out. But Neil Diamond's enthusiastic response suggests that whatever liberties the film took with biographical specifics, it captured something essential and true about what his music means to people. The film shows Neil Diamond's songs functioning as more than entertainment. They're tools for processing emotion, for communication when words fail, for creating connection between people who have lost their way. Sweet Caroline isn't just a catchy song in this movie. It's an anthem of hope. I Said isn't just a ballad about loneliness, it's a confession and a prayer. This is what Diamond's music has always been for millions of people, and seeing that portrayed with love and authenticity moved him to tears. The relationship between Jackman and Diamond represents something increasingly rare in our celebrity-obsessed culture: genuine mutual respect between artists from different generations and different fields. Jackman, despite being a massive star himself, approached Neil with sincere reverence. He didn't just take the role for a paycheck or career boost. He did it because he wanted to honor the music and the man who created it. And Neil, despite being a legend who could easily be dismissive of actors playing tribute band performers, recognized the artistry and respect in Jackman's work and responded with warmth and generosity. In an era of social media feuds, competitive posturing and manufactured beef between artists, this story feels almost revolutionary in its kindness. Two successful men at the tops of their respective fields chose connection over ego, chose to celebrate each other's work, chose friendship. The guitar will undoubtedly become one of Jackman's most treasured possessions, not because of its monetary value, but because of what it represents. Every time he sees it hanging on his wall or picks it up to play, he'll remember the night he did karaoke with Neil Diamond in Colorado. Remember Neil grabbing him after the screening and saying, "You did good, kid." Remember that an 84-year-old legend dealing with Parkinson's disease still found joy in music and wanted to share that joy. And maybe someday, years from now, Jackman will pass that guitar to someone else. Another actor, another musician, someone who honored art with the same reverence he brought to Song Sung Blue. The cycle will continue, the respect and generosity will be paid forward, and that battered guitar case will carry new stories, new connections, new moments of artistic recognition. Song Sung Blue, the movie, is fundamentally about people finding hope and healing through music. The story of Neil's gift to Jackman is the same theme playing out in real life. Art connects us across divides that seem impossible to bridge. It heals wounds we didn't know we could survive. And when we honor it properly, with love and respect and genuine understanding, it creates bonds that transcend commerce, ego, fame, or any other barrier we construct. That's what was in that battered guitar case when Jackman opened it. Not just wooden strings, but a reminder of everything music can be when we approach it with open hearts. If this story moved you, if it reminded you that respect and kindness between artists matters, that honoring someone's life work is one of the highest compliments you can pay, share this video with someone who loves music. Subscribe to the channel for more stories about the moments that reveal what's best in human nature. Thank you for watching until the end. Remember that the best gifts aren't the most expensive, they're the most meaningful. Remember that humility and generosity are marks of true greatness. Remember that art belongs to everyone who finds meaning in it, and that sometimes the most powerful thing you can say to another artist is simply, "You did good, kid." Until next time, keep honoring the art you love, keep respecting those who create it, and remember Hugh Jackman whispering "Thank you, Neil" as he hugged that guitar, because that's what real gratitude looks like.